piece of me? You want a piece? No! I want two!
Back when the first live-action movie first debuted, there was a clear divide amongst the fandom over the designs of classically beloved characters, going from smooth, cohesive robots to what some people described as walking junk piles of scrap metal. Whereas the designs in the movie were somewhat overcomplicated, the toy's engineering sadly didn't reflect that, still using concepts from the Cybertron toy line to bridge the gaps. The toys also had a different look to the on-screen incarnations, due to working on concept art rather than final draft. But I found that over the years, some of these designs have aged quite well, and one of the designs that I think has aged really well, that of Jazz. Not this one. This one. After starting out in vehicle mode, the movie Jazz was based on that of a concept variant of the Pontiac Solstice, which is sadly no longer made. Now, what makes it a concept variant is the fact that he has a hard top rather than a soft top. The Pontiac Solstice was a convertible car, and I do wish that they'd made this, and I do wish that they were still about, because it is such a gorgeous car. Now, you will see some scratches on the hood and on the side of the car. Sadly, this guy has quite a bit of silver paint that likes to chip. But I must say, it is a gorgeous, gorgeous rendition of that car, with all the bells and whistles that you'd expect. From that nice little red crest at the front, the lights, the little intakes on the side, the door handles, right round. It is such a gorgeous car, and I think that this figure really does that car mode justice. I really do. He's got some nice silver rims on his wheels. The lights are just in clear plastic alongside the windshield. You can see inside some robot detailing, but you don't have to worry about that. Got the grille at the front done in this very nice sort of gunmetal black, and the rest of the car in that nice painted silver. You can see some of the robot detailing on the bottom, but you don't have to think about that. Come around to the back, you've got two sets of lights. You've got these painted red lights, and you've got these very, very nice translucent deep red, which do look quite nice. You can see a bit of break up there. Sadly, he doesn't stay together very well. I found that certain parts will pop out quite frequently on this guy, like the front lights on the hood. They don't like to tab in quite well, which for some reason I managed to get it to work this time, but normally when I try and push one side down, it will pop the back section of the car, so I can deal with a line at the back. But yes, it is a very, very nice car. It is gorgeous. Now, there is one accessory that I can show you that came with this figure at this point, and that is this little figurine of Sam Witwicky holding the Allspark. It's quite nice and detailed, that Allspark. You know, it's just a little painted figure of Sam Witwicky, but it's a nice little addition. It scales quite well with the car, and I feel that was only thrown in purely because of how small this guy is compared to other Masterpiece figures. So before I go into transformation, how about we take a little bit of a look at the history of the Pontiac Solstice. Megatron, will you put him down? Transformation is quite a unique one for this figure. It's very much splitting the arms and the legs apart from the main torso of the body, which is comprised of the front half of the car as well as the hood. Now, there's a few things that I actually quite enjoy with this transformation. It's simplistic but also quite intuitive, bringing a certain class of somewhat sophistication, but overall it's nicely complex. It's not too difficult. I do like the way that the chest does rotate right round, including the hood section becoming part of the underbelly. I do think that there are some really, really nice techniques used here within the engineering. This is what I mean by the design really aging well over time. I mean, the movie Jazz design really looks great, and it's a shame that we didn't see much of him in the movie. I mean, he is really, really nice. So he carries over that same silver paint scheme, that same sort of gunmetal black, except in robot mode we do have some of this sort of gunmetal grey or darker grey, as well as some gold highlights, some copper highlights, and a little license plate on his belly button. Quite cool. A lot of those car parts do disperse really nicely over this figure and really help this guy feel like he does turn into something. I do think that the back is done really well as well, hiding those two lights and giving us these faux lights, which look really good. And it really does compress well, and it really does hide a lot of those car parts really well. Now there is one accessory I can show you, and that being his shield gun, which is done in a really weird sort of greeny gold and silver cast in black, and that just goes over his hand like so. If he wants to hold it, there we go, he does. And he can hold his gun. It's quite cool. You can pose him holding it like a Gatling gun. Speaking of posability, let's get into the articulation on this guy. So, starting at the head, his head is on a universal, so swivel with a slight bit of tilt, no side tilt unfortunately. His shoulders are on a double universal, so you've got a double hinge here, a swivel at the base and swivel at the shoulder. You've got a 360 swivel at that bicep. You've got a double bend at the elbow, which does get some nice range. Not a whole bunch, but just enough to get what you need. His hands can rotate round 360 and do have two joints at each finger, so you can get a nice bit of posability on his hands. He does have a slight bit of a wiggle at the chest, and that's purely down to transformation. His waist is on a swivel as well, but it's quite a stiff swivel. It's not a ratchet, it is just stiff. His hips are on a hinge and a double hinge here, which is mostly for transformation, but you can use that for articulation if you want. His side skirts do move up and down, and they do have that slight bit of articulation on the side as well. His knees have a very nice double bend as well, so he is very poseable. And his toes have a nice slight ankle tilt, as well as a slight toe bend from transformation. Overall, I think he is a really nice Masterpiece figure, and I have to say he is probably one of my favourite Masterpiece figures I have in my collection. He is damn right gorgeous. Now, like I was saying, it's very unfortunate that we didn't get to see much of Jazz in the first movie because of something that, oh for God's sake, Megatron! Yeah, unfortunately in the movie Jazz got ripped in half by Megatron. You can recreate that if you so wish with this figure by attaching this little attachment. Jazz's spinal cord is done in that same gold and silver, which is a bit morbid. So on Jazz he's got this little joint here, and it just pegs into his lower torso by pressing in that button. By doing so, it clips back on. By pressing it down, you can rip him in half and give him that attachment. Again, a bit morbid. If you want to do it, it's there for you to do. Now, In terms of storage for this little piece and his weapon, you can combine them. These two pegs here, the ports there, and 2 pegs, and you can attach his spinal cord to his gun. Yeah, that's still not right to me. Poor Jazz. Well, it's a difficult one really. The fact that you can rip a transformer in half to recreate a death scene, it's a bit odd. It is very, very odd. It's appreciated for being a very weird gimmick to include, if you can call it that. But it is a bit morbid. I mean, this poor guy only got very little screen time in the movie, and I think we could have really done with seeing more from Jazz. I think that as a character he could have done a lot more. I feel that being ripped in half and then making a toy out of it, it doesn't really do the guy justice. Now there is one last thing that I forgot to mention on the robot mode, that's his visor. You can flip his visor up and he's got 2 little beady eyes. Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for this guy, but I can't help but love him. He is a brilliant Masterpiece figure. I just wish that the movies did him a bit more justice. That's been my look at the Masterpiece movie Jazz. I think that he is a great figure. Like I said, that gimmick or that inclusion of his spinal cord and ripping him in half, it's a bit weird, I'm not gonna lie, but I do think that it's a great figure. But if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to subscribe, drop us a like, cheeky comment on what you think of this guy. Maybe I'll see you for another video like this. If you guys enjoyed this, then why don't you head over to Leicester Vintage Toy Shop channel and check out their Toy Shop on Tour series, as we follow Joe and Gav's adventure around the UK and Europe, exploring new toy shops and collecting some old toys.
Action figures,
Dolls,
Star Wars,
weird stuff,
Transformers,
monsters.
space toys.